Hello! Have you heard the tragedy of the Rancor? Introduced in The Return of the Jedi, the Rancor is one of the most popular monsters of the Star Wars franchise, despite only being on screen for less than 3 minutes, really. The reason for such an impactful debut? The presentation, the design and movement, the show of pain and frustration, and little looks like these. Each piece is a hint of personality which, packed into such a small amount of time, add up to make the Rancor memorable. But there's one more factor that, for me at least, makes this beastie especially memorable: the emotional response. As with many monsters that face off against the hero, the Rancor is unfortunately killed off. Upon seeing his pet die, Jabba the Hutt rages and orders the execution of the prisoners in the worst way he can think of.
As the great Jabba the Hutt has decreed that you are to be terminated immediately.
Good, I hate long waits.
You will therefore be taken to the Dune Sea and cast into the pit of Carcoon. You will find a new definition of pain and suffering as you are slowly digested over 1,000 years.
Second thought, let's pass on that, huh?
This mimics the Rancor's monstrous savagery. It's the whole owners look like their pets thing. However, this is not the only reaction to the Rancor's death. You wouldn't expect this big burly bloke to be the crying type, and yet he weeps for the loss of the Rancor. It shows a deeper emotional connection to the beast, as well as the other side of the emotional coin to Jabba's outrage. And once again, this coincides with how the Rancor acts, not with a death roar of defiance, but a pitiful, dying whimper. The Rancor is more than just a big monster that goes chompy chomp. Despite the memorable appearance and apparent popularity with fans, the Rancor never made another mainline appearance in Star Wars. That was until the Book of Boba Fett. In case you haven't seen it, short story short, the series follows Boba Fett, who survived the Sarlacc pit and returned to take over Jabba's palace. But there was something missing.
It's empty.
That was until a rival gang boss presented Boba Fett with a peace offering. A new Rancor! Yay! We even had Danny Trejo as the Rancor Keeper, a nice little extra on top of this surprise. Once inside the palace, the CGI Rancor was replaced with a full-size animatronic, showing a willingness to spend time, money and effort on the creature. This reminded me of how the original Rancor's portrayal was changed from suitmation to claymation after some consideration. The similar change in method raised hopes that this Rancor would get the same amount of thought put into it. The first cracks appeared when Danny Trejo described the Rancor as depressed, loving, and emotionally complex. This isn't usually the sort of thing you want to be told about, but rather see happen and experience in the show. Luckily, this is followed by Boba Fett scratching the Rancor behind the ear like a dog, and making his intention to ride it known. This was very promising. Treating the Rancor like a loving pet gives the creature more personality and emotional girth, kind of like the emotionally complex comment tried to do. The want to ride the Rancor echoes every child's dream and hints at more scenes with Boba Fett and the Beast training together, which in turn would deliver more opportunities to use and develop the Rancor. A dodgy start with the comments from Danny Trejo, but a positive outlook for the rest of the series. I can't wait to... Oh. We are introduced to the Rancor in episode 3 of the Book of Boba Fett, and for only a few minutes. Given the original debut of the Rancor lasted about the same time, there was no excuse for not getting as much out of it as possible. But this isn't a film we're watching, it's a series, so there should be plenty of time and opportunities to explore the depths of the Rancor's possibilities. But after disappearing for 4 episodes, the Rancor reappears in the middle of the climactic battle, and it's being ridden by Boba Fett. What the hell? Where was the time spent with the Rancor? Where was the training? Where was the bonding? I thought I was going to see some Rancor action in this series. Where the bloody hell did it all go? The Rancor spends the rest of the episode fighting droids, smashing up the town, and ruining the Mandalorian's sense of worth. We went from, here's this emotionally complex animal we want to train, to big monster go chompy chomp in no time at all.
It's depressed. Rancor are emotionally complex creatures. They can become very loving.
Worse, Boba Fett, who apparently liked the Rancor and wanted to bond with it, leads the poor thing straight into the sights of laser turrets that can destroy armoured vehicles. The Rancor's only protection is a small metal plate carelessly hung around its neck. The fact the Rancor survives this and other encounters isn't down to Boba Fett's care and attention, but to the poor writing of this series. Writing that hinted at the possibility of maybe doing something with the Rancor, only to forget about it until halfway through the last episode. Writing that had the start of a setup and the result of a payoff and nothing else in between. This isn't the only time the series does this, but in this instance they do it to something I actually care about. In the book Tales from Jabba's Palace, one of the many books now made non-canon, thanks Disney, you bar stewards, we read about the Rancor Keeper caring and bonding with Jabba's Rancor. The Rancor stood up and watched him bring the mound of meat closer, running a stubby purplish tongue across the edges of its packed rows of teeth. Malakili nudged the meat in front of the Rancor after removing his own white wrapped sandwich from the top of the pile. The Rancor used a hooked claw to sort through the lunch offerings until it selected a curved dewback rib. Malakili unwrapped his sandwich and hunkered down on the Rancor's bench-sized toe. Above him the monster chewed on the long rib bone, gnawing and slurping. This story was inspired by that 3-minute introduction in Return of the Jedi, and despite its short length, it was able to add a lot more depth to the Rancor. The Book of Boba Fett had the same opportunity and arguably the same freedom of time to do something similar. I'm not asking for a whole episode dedicated to the Rancor here, although arguably they could have done that. Just snippets here and there would do. Someone comes to talk to Boba Fett only to find him leading the Rancor by a chain attached to its nose. Rival gang bosses or the criminal family heads come to meet with Boba Fett and are led to the Rancor pit, where Boba Fett is feeding him while sitting on his toe, a nod to Malakili in the book. Short scenes that show just enough to give the impression of bonding and training that would make the appearance in the last episode far less jarring and more climactic. This whole reckless endangerment of a pet thing would still need to be addressed, but there's only so much you can do to polish a turd without tearing the whole thing apart and rebuilding it. There was plenty of time and opportunity to do something here. Instead, we go from setup to payoff and miss out on what would have made both meaningful. Bloody hell, what a waste. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it didn't leave you too down in the dumps over the mistreatment of our beastie boy. If you have your own thoughts on the Rancor or the Book of Boba Fett as a whole, leave us a comment. If you have some spare cash lying around, why not visit my Etsy store? Link in the description. Once again, thank you for watching.